Yep,
We are live.
we are live. Beautiful.
Introduce yourself to us.
So my name is Roydan Barboza. I'm an artist slash muralist from Dubai. I've been painting for 10 years now, and I think it's my longest passion project, and I love doing it.
So 10 years, what got you started? How did you get you started?
Oh, I think I was painting as long as high school, as long as I could remember. We used to do all these projects uh, to like decorate the school and the school walls. So I think that's where it really stemmed from. And it kicked off from there. I wanted to draw and sketch on everything that I got my hands on, books, textbooks. I used to be sketching while doing during my classes as well. It was it kind of took over me, my personality, and it was a great way of like kind of expressing myself as well. Um, and yeah, I was having fun with it, and then did it through high school. Got my first break through Red Bull as like a professional mural artist, and got like to do a 16-meter wall in like a gym for them. Yeah, and it was great. Worked on it for like 5 days, and that's where I kind of got paid my first paid gig as well. So I was ecstatic.
How did you get Red Bull's attention?
So I was actually doing brand managing for them. So I was a student brand manager through the university that I was at. So it was the University of Wollongong in Dubai, and in Dubai they were doing quite an active marketing campaign, Red Bull. So they'd be all over the place. They'd be at like different events and uni events and stuff like that. So they'd have a designated person on each campus, and I was one of them. So I do their sales, their promotion, bringing kind of free cans to students at different times in uni, and everyone loved me for that. You know, like I was the guy with the free Red Bull. And then my supervisor at the time, Yara, she kind of went like, I don't know, you paint, and maybe we should get you a wall, you know. And that's how she kind of put me in touch with these people at this gym, and we kind of took it from there, and I got my first wall up, and yeah, that was got paid for it, and it was the best feeling ever.
Nice. Were you studying?
I was studying as
So
well at the time.
Studying art?
No, I was studying marketing at the time. So that's how Red Bull kind of tied with me. So I was doing their marketing, and it kind of went in with my degree as well. So working, studying, painting, and this was like for at least a good 2 years, 3 years, towards the end of my degree, and then I decided to come to Australia and kind of work on my skills and develop my skills as an artist, and did RMIT for 3 years. Did a bachelor in fine art at RMIT in painting, and it was where my skills got tested. I think the most, you know, like because being self-taught was a whole different thing, and painting a wall was a whole different thing, and then actually working on fine contemporary art and kind of doing the traditional shades and color balances and shapes, and it really made me jump through some loops that I didn't know that I had, and I was really expressing myself as an artist.
How was your work received by your lecturers at RMIT?
I think I was definitely a little different. Through the class that we had, everyone had like some weird quirky talent, and I used to kind of merge my traditional medium painting with a lot of digital stuff, like through my iPad. So they would sort of see that and go like, ah, this looks different. And I'll always be submitting like digital stuff, and then sort of bouncing it back and still painting as well at the same time and working, and then sort of the style kind of merged, and that's how I think I developed my style to kind of paint this very sort of digital way, and it would look like I would try to always replicate the screen. So all my references would be off a screen, but then when I start painting it, would kind of look like the screen itself. So I I was hopping between those two realms.
It's pretty. You've got a pretty wild style.
Yeah, it kind of looks sometimes almost psychedelic. That's what a lot of people kind of resonate. It resonates with a lot of people with very easily. But I was definitely kind of influenced a lot by Dali, a lot of surrealist styles, and then a lot by Warhol and like Keating, and with the color schemes and the kind of simplicity in like pop culture reference. So it was definitely a mix of me kind of bringing pop and surrealism together as well. And yeah, the style kind of evolved. I had to kind of give it more depth. So I was looking at a lot of 17th century ukiyo-e Japanese art, and it was it kind of played into like storytelling and how that kind of took off, and that kind of got more influence in my style as well, because I realized that Dali and all these guys were also just telling a story that they couldn't really put into words, and image referencing was quite important, and that's what I try to kind of resonate and kind of manipulate my style to kind of do as well.
Because I was looking through your work actually earlier, and I can even see some like MC Escher
Yeah,
kind of in your kind of ink drawings, and
Yeah.
Even some like HR Geiger
yeah, some
kind of influence there. Are they artists that you also have been?
Yeah,
over the years?
my monochromatic sort of phase was filled with looking at ink drawings and sketches and stuff like that. And I used to do a lot of work with the ballpoint pen and markers, and yeah, I would definitely say that I had a look at them and they kind of influenced me, and a lot of other black and white artists as well. Uh, they the style and cross hatching and drawing with like an instrument is so like haptic, and even though I was painting at the time, it would always be down to kind of building this scene, in this pop surrealism sort of world, but kind of using that monochromatic effect to kind of start off with, and that would be my base. And I think all these different things that I dip my hands into during art school kind of layered itself one on top of each other to kind of build my own process. And I like that I use almost every favorite facet of mine, and I can then see it come together in a final piece.
So do you start kind of like with the form in mind,
Yeah.
and then add the color? Or do you?
So the color, usually I let it flow through. That's my sort of random creative process. Like, I have a heap of color in my house. I've got sprays, acrylics, markers, paint markers, the whole lot. And then I'd sort of just let it flow through and let it sort of reflect in the piece itself. I would kind of build on like certain base colors and then sort of build off there, and then counter them and just make them a little more contrasting on the canvas, so it'll sort of complement each other but also fight with each other, where you kind of go like, oh yeah, those kind of don't go together, but they kind of in this tug of war, like with your eye, and then your eye goes into a battle of like just color. And I like it. I like playing with like the viewer a bit as well, make them feel depth, you know kind of pull and push the image, have like large images out front, and then kind of make it go all the way back and really like pull back the canvas. Yeah.
I showed your work to someone earlier today actually, and she mentioned that she noticed there was a lot of phallic references. Is that something you do on purpose?
I don't do it on purpose, but I think it's a long playing joke that I've kind of just like had in my work, and if you see it, you see it, and if you don't, you don't. But yeah, it's to do with that idea that sort of sex sells sometimes as well, and subliminally we're all kind of like in that limbo of it. So it kind of reflects in my work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the stories you're trying to tell with you mentioned storytelling with images. What are your stories?
So the series goes like this. It's called The Infernum According to Roy, and it's a chapter of Purgatory, basically. And I painted it through COVID and a bit before that as well. That's when I was kind of developing it. And it was how we were kind of stuck, and time kind of slowed down. But Purgatory, because it was the most unexplored sort of realm. You see a lot of people painting hell, heaven, the Garden of Eden, places that we know of, and then adding hyper referencing to it. But Purgatory was there were a lot of people that have kind of referenced it, but they don't go into. It's more lithographs, and it's more like these pencil drawings from back in the day, and so I wanted to really bring some light to it, some color to it, and it was like this limbo space, like this dreamscape that I've been sort of trying to create in my head. So The Infernum According to Roy was basically a series on Purgatory.
So is that just one series, or is that something you're trying to express in your whole?
I think this series has sort of taken over my time now. I think it's just not done. I do paint a lot of other things on the side. Like I do a lot of my abstract stuff, and I do a lot of like pencil drawings in like this big book, and I just keep developing like more references into this sort of world. But there's a lot of side projects that I take into. But the Infernum has sort of taken over my my sort of main thinking process and my storyboarding for the last maybe 3 years now. And I just feel like it's not done yet. So the new series that I'm putting out as well is going to be like a sort of continuation to the Infernum According to Roy. And just kind of exploring this world that I've sort of been creating, or the world that I think that Purgatory sort of is. Yeah, and each of these paintings are like screenshots or like scenic shots of this particular moment, and you can see the connection between all of them as you look past them. There's a lot of repetition, a lot of familiar color to objects and stuff like that you kind of see popping up again and again, but in like different sort of ways. And yeah, I'm trying to really layer it and trying to create something that I don't know where it's going yet, but it's
they're quite because they're quite colourful.
Yeah.
And all that. What emotion are you trying to kind of draw out from the viewer with that series?
So I've seen a lot of people react to my work different ways, right? A lot of confusion, a lot of some people are a little insulted by it, like questioning it, like, oh, what does this mean? Because it doesn't look out of the norm, and there's always twist in characters, or like nudity, or some references that people don't like, a lot of religious themes as well. So there's a lot of question in it, and I overlap all of that with more references and like doubt, and people kind of see like this sort of panic amidst all this color, sometimes even harmony, and it's there are multiple emotions sort of brought out by it, and I've seen like people react to it in many different ways.
Yeah, and are these art industry people, or?
Art industry people, my friends, a lot of like creatives from RMIT as well. They didn't know what to make of it because it's so heavily bodied sometimes. So I see a lot of doubt in their eyes when looking at it. So, but I get a lot of criticism as well, and it's a great way to sort of build. And like I take a lot of feedback from all my peers as well because growing up, where I grew up in Dubai was so international that all these all these religions and sort of themes sort of merged into life, and it's a hyper multicultural sort of environment. So I think that's what I try to bring out in my painting as well, sort of how I got exposed to this at a young age, and now it's kind of reflecting in my work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like.
How are you religious? I take it. You are religious?
Yeah, I think I'd say I'm religious. I'm Catholic, born and raised. Go to Sunday school. Yeah, fair bit.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, still go to church and stuff like that.
How does that tie in with being an artist? I mean,
I think I have a lot of
help or a hindrance.
I did read a bit of the Bible as well for referencing. A lot of the chapters of Revelation and kind of like the final days where they kind of reference a lot of purgatory as well, you know, and reference a lot of things that happen at that time, and like winged devils and stuff like that. There's a lot of like religious referencing, and yeah, I think it does definitely play in from that side because purgatory is like based off like the Catholic belief, right?
Yeah. It makes sense.
So, but I feel like all religions sort of have this place, you know, and it's where I kind of draw or kind of bring them all together on the canvas. That sort of shows, you know, that I do like have some religious sort of background, or there is some religion tied into it, because there's a lot of like crucifixions and like beheadings, and you can see it, like people getting like tortured and stuff like that. So it goes back. I reference, like, as I said, the 17th century Japanese art. You know, there's a lot of like pull and push of power in those kind of paintings. You know, they're scenic, the sort of crusades, the medieval torture techniques. They're all kind of brought in, you know, and just layered and kind of create like this storyline, this narrative to kind of build on. Yeah, I've developed like characters, creatures that I kind of replicate. Yeah, and it's interesting to kind of see come to life, because I kind of think on the fly as well of what it could be and what I'm trying to create and where the story goes, and there's like a whole bigger picture in my mind that I don't know, I haven't reached that I can't see the whole thing yet, but I know that there's a bigger picture at the end of all these paintings. I think my aim has always been to like create like a wholesome body of work that I can like look at and kind of go like, all right, and have that finish, that touch, that technique sort of implemented.
I guess you could call it religious art then.
Yeah, you could.
Series. I don't know about your other work. Does religion play a part in your other works as well? The kind of abstract side.
I have drawn some religious themes back in the day, throughout uni and stuff like that. It's yeah, I guess you'd say it's played a role. It's definitely played a big role, because there was, as I said, like this is all like stuff that I've kind of experienced throughout growing up and throughout uni and throughout Dubai and now Melbourne, and you know, it's all these experiences put together that are sort of coming out on the canvas now. Yeah, it's sometimes how I perceive things as well, you know, with all this bright color and stuff like that. It's just how I look at things in my head, but yeah, they're different in real life, obviously.
How was your work received here in comparison to Dubai? I'm really curious about that, actually.
So I think I was painting more commercially in Dubai. and I did do a lot of massive projects. So my work was received quite well by like the public because it was very bright, very colorful. But then again, I was always like, I think 80% of the time in Dubai I was painting off a brief. So I was more commercial over there. As to over here, where I've been more traditional and more contemporary and like uh, painting more like a traditional artist. But I think it was received well, you can say, in both places. It definitely increased in quality, and my skills and my use of color has definitely improved. So I think Melbourne got to see a different side of me, as did Dubai, when I was painting a little more, you can say, on the amateur side of like the painting spectrum, but I still did some significant work there regardless. But that's just me judging myself harshly, I guess, like, but it was great. Yeah, I think I had my critics in both places, and it was it's always taught me, and I've always learned from whatever people have said, regardless.
Yeah. How about exhibiting? Have you exhibited much?
Yes, I have exhibited a fair bit around Melbourne, especially. Did the Raw Natural Artist Show. Had a stall there for a couple of years. Did a fair bit of live painting sessions and like exhibitions with the Fitzroy Art Collective, the Mava Art Group, the Melbourne Artist Collective. So I have friends in a couple of these places, and they always call me on, and it's a great time when we work together. So we've done group shows. I did a solo exhibition as well of the first edition of the Infernum According to Roy at the Caringbush Hotel. So that was my first solo show. Got a lot of good feedback. Sold a couple of pieces over there. So, and then recently I've been mainly hosting gallery shows. As you know, I worked at the Ant Gallery as like a gallery manager for 6 months, and it was great. I was doing their sales, their marketing. I was curating the shows, helping curate the shows with the art director, Julie Collins. She was also working as my mentor, so I learned a lot of things out of her. How to like do the installation, how to like kind of balance things across a space, how to have people move around the gallery, the flow, and there were a lot of technical things that we discussed, a lot of technical things that we learned together as well, off each other, because she's been in the game for so long, and then I come in with a lot of fresh ideas as well. So it was a learning curve for her. I think we bounced a lot of good ideas off each other. But yeah, we hosted 6 curated shows in this Federation Square space, and yeah, I think it was a massive success.
How would you describe kind of working in the arts in Melbourne and in general? I mean, especially when you're trying to get your work out there,
Yeah.
and get into shows and sell work. What's your experience of that?
I think Melbourne has been quite out there with its arts and its shows. There are heaps of open calls all over the city at different galleries. You just have to have strong artist statement, a good body of work to back you up, and just that sort of creative drive, to kind of take the punches as they come, because you do get a lot of rejections as well. I've been rejected a fair few times from a fair few galleries. And it's just how you sort of take that information, like I said before, like been criticized for like my wall work in Dubai as well. So it's just how you take that kind of feedback, and it's been good. Exhibiting in Melbourne is always great, because there are so many people out there kind of looking at your work, and it's a great platform to kind of distinguish talent as well, to kind of really put yourself on a pedestal on the night and kind of just be like, this is me, and what do you guys think?
You touched on something, artist statements, that I'm curious about as well. Some people that I've spoken to, myself included, occasionally think that the whole artist statement thing, sometimes they're quite a bit overfluffed. Maybe you could say, what's your thought? What are your thoughts on that?
We have to. I've always thought that it's always about like kind of selling yourself in a way, the artist statement is sort of reflective of what, like, it's that first impact, that first power punch that you kind of get. So I think a lot of people fluff it up, but it's only fair, if your body of work kind of backs it up, and if people can kind of make that connection between what's written and what's drawn, because I feel that it's definitely quite an integral piece of the puzzle when you kind of put your work into words. It has its way of kind of laying that foundation for what people kind of come to see or kind of come to understand, because some people like to read the artist statement after experiencing, and some people do it before. So
I prefer after.
You prefer after, yeah. I prefer sometimes I read it after, but if there's some artists that just click with me that I have to do it before, but yeah, that's just me again. Yeah, they do fluff it up though. I can't even I fluff mine up a bit. No, you gotta make yourself look good. Because being creative, it's all about that, right?
Have you come across any that have been, in your opinion, overdone?
There are some of them that really play with some words, and like I'm just like, whoa, like that's a lot of energy right there. But yeah, it's not gonna take any names, but we've.
Don't name names.
No, we won't name names. Because it was a big part of like art school as well, to get that artist statement, because that's like sort of where your entry point is sometimes, because that's what people read before even sometimes seeing the artworks when you submit applications and stuff like that. So you gotta know what you're talking about and not overdo it, but kind of simplify it for some people as well. Yeah. It's a fine line. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it takes some working. Like I think I still constantly change my artist statement as well, because it's how I'm feeling in the moment as well, kind of reflecting that.
Do you get people to read it before you submit
it? Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's always helpful to kind of get someone's second opinion on it. Sometimes if I'm feeling really good about it, I just have a go. There are those times when I just don't want anyone to read it and I just put it through. As I said, it's all based on my mood sometimes, like I think on the fly, and maybe it's not the best thing sometimes, but when you're trying to be creative and you want to see what that raw emotion is, you kind of just put yourself out there and wait for someone to pick it up. But yeah, I think like you got to get your spellings and stuff right, and your punctuation. But other than that, it should be good.
People have ChatGPT.
Yeah.
To help us.
Welcome to 2023. Welcome to 2023.
So, what's in store for the future for you?
Oh, I got a couple of things in the pipelines. We're kind of working on. At the moment, Infernum According to Roy Part 2, as I haven't named it yet, but this whole new series of around 7 to 8 canvas pieces, plus some prints, and kind of trying to go into maybe a gallery show or a big solo show by the mid of this year, actually, like before July, for sure. Yeah. And we're also working with a couple of friends from out of town, and on this new project that I'm kind of working on. It's not named yet, but it's going to be a fashion line. So let's see how that kind of pans out. Trying to get my illustrations and some drawings on like maybe clothing and some hoodies, some blazers, sweatshirts, some streetwear. We haven't kind of finalized on anything as of yet, but might be looking at a whole series of clothing internationally, and working with some creatives on it.
When can we expect to see that?
So we're trying to launch it by June this year.
Yeah.
So we have made a whole schedule for the next couple of weeks. We're gonna lock in some designs, do some samples, lock in a great supplier, and for me, like if it's fashion, then I'm looking at like material and like fit and comfort, because that's like what I'm about. So, and then that got to incorporate the design as well. So what illustrations on what material would look kind of like cool, what would go together. So we're going to do some samples and kind of have that all hashed out by the end of April, and be ready for like operations and sales by June.
That's a tight timeline.
It's pretty tight, but this guy that I'm working with, he's quite on it, and he's already set up a lot of things. So I think that we can really nail it, and there's no time at the moment. So I'm in like a flow, and creative juices are flowing. So might as well get it all out there, kind of reach like a solid sort of growth, and kind of bang some things out, and let's see how we go. I want to see some results this year. I want to do something this year. So I think that kind of getting my hands mixed up in a couple of things is gonna be really good for me as well. Yeah.
Actually, I want to go back in time. Actually,
Yeah.
I always like asking about this with art as well. What drives you? What's the primary driver, do you think, in your creativity? Like, why?
Why, right?
Why?
Yeah. That's a pretty good question. I think it's just been a way to express myself, like to put it in like a couple of words. It's been there with me as like it's been there with me for as long as I can remember. This way to kind of like, some people sing, some people play an instrument, and I could like draw, and I was always like kind of putting my thoughts down into like little sketches, and I think that's my main drive, to kind of like see more of what I can do, like, and to kind of just keep showing people that there's like all of this imagery and content, within me, I guess, and like to just get it all out there and just express myself.
Are you more driven by the process or the end result, like exhibiting?
I think the process is my main drive, because how I feel when I'm working is like nothing else. Like when I'm like painting, or when I'm like facing up against a wall, it's just doing like these massive projects. I go into like this whole different zone, and I love that feeling, like that crunch of like, putting down paint and like getting dirty with it, and like getting all hands on, like with like these spray paint techniques, and like getting ink on my hand. Like I still got paint on my hand right now, like but yeah, just getting involved with like the material itself. It's been such a big sort of like part of like my career, my drive, and all of that. Just expressing myself, yeah.
What are your? This is going to be a funny question, but what do your parents think of what you do?
Oh, my parents.
Are they happy?
Yeah. my dad was a bit skeptical at first, and they didn't know where I got it from, because I used to draw so much. And like I had like heaps of like art books as like a kid, and like I'd be so interested in like coloring and all that. So, but yeah, they kind of saw my passion towards it and what I've achieved as well commercially in Dubai, and kind of saw that as a chance to kind of give me this goal, at like kind of doing it as a career. And I always put my everything into like into art, so you can see it as well sometimes with my work. But yeah, I think they were pretty supportive. The end of that, yeah, they were pretty supportive of me.
Guess, do you have any words of wisdom for young artists? I mean, you've exhibited, you've exhibited around the world actually.
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom for a young artist or a creative? Or?
I mean, don't be afraid to just put yourself out there. I think it's there are no boundaries with what you can do either. Just go for it and be ready for some rejections, because that's such a big part, and have fun with it as well. Just the usual cliches, but it makes a big difference because it'll just show in your work, and when you love doing something, you just naturally find yourself in a better mindset, in a better mood. Work flows through, creative juices are going, and it's where you want to be. It's where I want to be usually. So that's why I just don't stop.
Would you recommend art school?
Would I recommend art school? Yeah, definitely. I feel if you're a little lost, art school is a good way to find yourself, because you're exposed to so many different talents and so up close, and you really get a lot of feedback, and I think that kind of influences you a fair bit, just to know what people constantly think about your work, because we used to do like group crits every week, so people were talking about your work like constantly, and I think that's the best kind of feedback, like that fresh sort of first person feedback. So it helps. I feel it's not for everyone, and not everyone needs it. Sometimes if you have a good set of creative friends that can constantly criticize you as well, try to keep that, because that builds. Sort of record everything. I have like notes about a lot of stuff, so the usual note-taking things, and just keeping that sort of ideas sort of rolling, what to do, what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, last question, Roydan.
Yeah, go for it.
Are you lefty or righty?
Oh, I'm a righty.
You're a righty.
Yeah, I wish I could use my left. I wish, or do both, right? Like those ambidextrous drawings, but I just definitely a righty.
Practice.
Yeah, practice. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Roydan.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks for coming
that was
on.
awesome.